Good evening, friends and subscribers. We're happy to be back with you on another live late show. Well, that's hard to say. I'm your host, D. Doss, and I am here with my very good friend Mike from the Carolinas. This man has had a lifetime encounters with ghosts, alien grays, seen Bigfoot eye shine. So instead of giving a big introduction, I'm just going to introduce him and we're going to be off. Mr. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm honored to be here, D. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to finally get out and talk about these things.
Absolutely. It's an honor to have you. We were just talking about off air how you and I and a lot of other people, we experience these cryptids. We have sightings. Some of us actively research them, but a lot of those folks don't like to talk about the UFO sightings they've had and stuff like that. And that's what this channel is for people to feel comfortable giving their encounters and their eyewitness testimonies and whatnot, where they won't be met with criticism.
Absolutely, and hopefully it'll give people the courage to come forth and kind of open the door for other people to say what they've seen and help them out a little bit.
For sure. And for the folks who do have any encounters they'd like to share of any kind, you can email me at bigfootdogmanresearch@gmail.com. So starting off, you were I believe 8 years old when you had your first experience with any of this kind of stuff.
Actually, I was 5 years old, D,
Five.
uh, and it continued to go all through my life, even into my 20s, and even till today. I have sightings of things and things that go on in my life that that most people wouldn't believe it unless they seen it.
Well, why don't you flesh out that first experience you had when you were 5 years old for the folks? Because I know that they're going to want to hear this one.
Well, the 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 first experience I had when I was five. We didn't have much growing up as kids. My mom and dad were young, starting off a family and all, and I was the second child. My brother was 5 years older than me, and but anyway, we slept in bunk beds um, in a little small trailer. We had a small room, and I was on top, my brother was on bottom, and I'd say it was probably, I don't know, 12 o'clock at midnight or so. And I had just shut my eyes and I had a strange feeling that come over me. And I just happened to look at the foot of my bed. And remember, I'm on the top bunk. And I guess that's probably what, 5.5 feet high. And I really didn't know what they were then, but now I do. They were the typical grays, uh, the black almond eyes, the big heads, little bitty mouth, a little bitty nose, and it was two of them uh, peeking over my into my bed rail, and and it was quite an experience. I kind of got really scared as a 5 years old. About the only thing you can do at that age is put the covers over your head and pray to God that these things will go away because you think they're the boogeymen or things of that nature. And
Pretty close to it.
it was quite an experience, I tell you. And I had a little window behind my little bunk bed there, a little bitty small window, and it was putting in enough ambient light where I could see basically their head from their chin all the way up to the top of their heads, and you could see the eyes blinking and everything. And like I said, I put the blankets over my head, and all of a sudden I had the strangest feeling that I've ever had. And the the only way I can describe it, D, is you know how water swirls in the drain as it just turns and turns and turns.
Yes, sir.
And that's what my insides were feeling like. And the next thing I can remember is waking up the next morning and going outside and to play. And as a 5-year old kid, you don't know if you've dreamed this or what. And you watch your next cartoon and you kind of just, it goes in your mind and out your mind. But basically that was my first experience uh, with, I guess you call them grays or aliens or whatever you. Some people call them other things, but and we'll kind of get to this down the line. But I had come to find out years to come, and I'll get to it later. They had marked me, and I'll
Right.
kind of explain that, a little later on.
Did you get that fearful feeling whenever you looked up and saw them, realized they were in the room?
Well, it, at first, at first I thought it was my brother joking with me, but I could hear him down at below me, and I could hear him breathing and sleeping. And when I knew that it wasn't him, yeah, I was very fearful. And it's like I said, I put the covers up over my head, and I was praying to God that this will go away, because I thought, like I said, I thought it was the boogeymen, coming
Yes,
to get
sir.
me.
I would have thought
And
the same thing as a 34-year-old man.
yeah, well, even at me being 50 now, I would probably still think that.
No
But
doubt. So to put in perspective for the folks, we're talking late 70s, right?
this would have been 1973, maybe.
So early 70s. So there wasn't really any real talk about the Greys at that point in time. It hadn't become a household, name or anything to describe these beings as it is now.
No, and I've kind of went back and looked at that time and period, and I know that there were a lot of sightings at that time of UFOs, of the typical round UFOs and stuff like that. But as for sightings of what the aliens actually look like, no, I don't think nobody really had any idea of that.
And that's interesting because that most of the encounters you get in modern times with these Greys, they're the exact same description.
Yep.
So moving forward a little bit, what was your next encounter? And like we told the folks, I mean, it goes over a whole plethora of just strange stuff.
Um, I My next encounter was a few years later. I think I was either 7 or 8 years old. Um, my grandfather uh, passed away um, about 6 months earlier, and when I had this paranormal event happen to me, and one day I just got home from school doing my stuff, and I was in my bathroom. And to kind of give you a little background about me and my grandfather, I was always jealous of my older brother, because my older brother always seemed to get more love from my grandfather because he could do more things than I could. And at 10 years old, he was driving my grandfather around. And, it was different times back then. And, and I was always jealous. So I would do things to pick on my grandfather, and he would pick on me and chase me with the broom and laugh about it, and things like that. And but I was in my bathroom, you know, getting ready for school the next day or something. It's been such a long time now, but I opened the bathroom door, and my grandfather, that had passed away about 6 months earlier, was standing right in front of me, no more than 3 foot away. And my grandfather was a big man. He was about 6'6". He was an old county sheriff down the eastern coast in North Carolina, and he was a rugged old man. And he was standing right in front of me and smiling, and
That's terrifying.
and I I could see I could see he had his clothes on. He had his work clothes on. Um, and but I could see through him, but I could see he was, had his clothes on and everything like that, his facial features. And like I said, he was smiling at me, and I just got terrified. And I slammed the door, and the first thing I started doing was yelling for my mom to mom, 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 and just over and over and over again. And
Yeah, that's the default for a kid that sees something scary. Yell for mama.
yeah, and my mom, I am truly blessed. I had both my parents growing up, and they were there for me and my brother. And a lot of kids don't have that nowadays, but I was truly blessed with a functional, family. But my mom come running in there and banged on the door, and she said, "Son, what is wrong with you? What's wrong?" I said, "Mom, you will not believe this." I said, "But Grandpa was just here." She said, "What?" And I went through the spiel of telling her what happened, what I seen, his features, his facial features. He died in his mid mid 70s, and he had that rugged, you know, look on his face, the gray beard, the gray hair, and the bulbous nose, and the big ears. He had big ears, and he had his work shirt on, and it had CM on it. That was his nickname was CM, and and I told her that, and my mother, until this day, and me and my mom, I live with my mom now. I'm her caregiver, and we have always been close when it comes to things of that nature. And I think she understood, and she didn't think I was crazy or anything like that. She consoled me and told me everything was going to be all right. And you know, and most kids at that age already seeing what I have seen and been through. I tell you, it would have been a rough childhood growing up. But like I said, I had parents that were there for me, and it really helped me get through a lot of these difficult times when I was having these paranormal events.
And it makes all the difference in the world that you have a mom who's not just gonna write it off as being an overactive imagination or whatever. And A lot of us who have experienced things similar to that, did have those type of parents. Not saying that they were bad, but it's kind of hard for a parent to wrap their mind around a child telling them this weird stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Most of them, they just don't understand it, or won't even try to understand it, and they just block it and move on. But you know, to this day, me and my mama can finish each other's sentences. Um, that's how close we are, and she's always said that ESP or something runs in our family, and I tend to believe that for everything that I've been through in my lifetime. I sure wouldn't want to wish the things that I have gone through and seen on anybody, because I think anybody else, they would probably be pretty damaged.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mental strain trying to wrap your, especially at that young of an age, trying to
Yeah,
wrap your mind around all this type of stuff. So we have at 5 years old, you're seeing these alien grays at the foot of your bunk bed, and just a few years later, after your grandfather passes away, who you had this sort of playful, tumultuous relationship with, you'd pick on him, pick at him. All of a sudden, you open the door, and there he is, just a few months after he passes away.
and I guess the next thing that started happening to me was after the sighting of my grandfather. Uh, I would be in my room, typical kid growing up, putting models together, model airplanes or boats or things. And I started hearing voices. They were low, murmured voices, like someone was in the room with me and carrying on a conversation. It might be two, three, four, or more people that were carrying on a conversation. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but I constantly heard this for years and years and years. And it's something, even today, I can't explain what it was. And we had conversations, me and you, until, I mean, today even,
Yes, sir.
I hear this.
Right. And I've experienced the same thing. And there's a lot of people who have. And, it comes and goes in these little spurts. And the first thing the first conclusion you jump to is, well, I've finally gone over the moon.
Yeah,
My mind's finally snapped. But, when we started talking about it, other people started coming forward saying, yeah, serious professional people. And saying they've experienced the same thing too. And I just find it extremely odd because it's not only the same phenomenon, it always seems to be the same type of rhetoric. Someone murmuring, and it's about you, and
yeah,
the strange feelings that come along with it.
yeah, and it's you're being watched, and whatever the discussion that is going on is a discussion about you, and that's how I feel when I hear these voices. And like I say, I heard these all through my young childhood up to you know probably my late teens, and then for some reason they went away for a long time, and just this past couple of years they started coming back again. And that's when I kind of called you and told you, and you said, no, you, really? And I said, yeah. And you said you were going through the same thing. And
At the same time. And
yeah,
just like you, when I was a little kid, I had a few what folks call ghost encounters. They'd go away. There'd be a long time of peace and uh, not having to deal with stuff like that. And then these like strange voices. I grew up in a house that at the time I was 12 years old was 78 years old. And I'd be home alone in the upstairs building my Hot Wheels city or something, and there'd be these clear, decisive voices, and that uh, somebody just threw it in the chat. As a matter of fact, see, other people experience it as well. AJ Triple Double says, "I hear this all the time, muffled conversation." And not to give away his location, he's a former guest, a great friend of mine. He lives on a reservation up north. So, I mean, I don't know if it has something to do with the land or it's a very strange phenomenon. Went to college up there in Pennsylvania, never had any trouble. Moved down to Texas, never had any trouble. Moved back to Oklahoma, and it started back again around the same time as not only you, but about two or three other people that are associated with the channel were receiving that. And looking into it, there are some sort of sound-based weapons. So yeah, it's a very, very strange phenomenon. I don't know if it has to do with the cryptids or this ghost activity or extraterrestrial. It's just strange.
I tell you, it's something that I've eagerly wanted to figure out what it is, but it's just one of them things that you just don't know what it is, and I don't think it's anything harmful, uh, but then again, with the way the world's going to now, you just don't know, and
Right.
you know, getting off
It
subject
didn't fill
just
me
to
with fear, but it is uncomfortable. You know what I
it
mean?
very
Like
yes sir,
going outside, not seeing anybody around. Nobody's
yep.
around for miles.
Well, kind of getting off subject a little bit, I about a year and a half, 2 years ago, a lot of these people were hearing these underground noises and hearing these noises that seemed like they were coming like trumpets and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
And have heard both of them where I live now. And, it's not an everyday thing. It's rare when it happens, but I have heard that trumpet sound here. And also, like someone is running big machinery up underground, you know? And I don't, like I say, it could be where we live, but
Well, there's been cases in Oklahoma where thousands of people, Oklahoma and Texas, thousands of people have heard those noises. So I think there might be something to that, actually.
well, there was a place in, I think, Washington or Seattle back in the 80s where the government was experimenting with some kind of frequency, and thousands of people were being affected. It was causing people not to be able to sleep. Their eyes, things were vibrating, and
Right.
and they thought they were having poltergeist things going on, but they never did explain that. But anyway, getting
Yeah,
sorry to get
jumping,
off
jumping.
subject.
Yeah, that's okay. You know how we do it. Jumping back
Yeah.
into it though, you experience besides these strange, muffled, vibrational voices, which is the easiest way to explain it. As complicated as that sounds, like what you had a good long period of peace away from that stuff, correct?
Well, I wouldn't never call it peace, but uh, I guess my next experience, and a lot of people are coming out with this now, but we used to have a group of kids that got together where we lived at, and we would all play football. And it wasn't no tag football back then, it was rough football, and I ended up breaking my right wrist. So I went to the doctor, and this is what I was talking about earlier about being tagged. I went to the doctor, and he took an x-ray. Well, sure enough, I had broken my right wrist. And but in the x-ray, uh, it also showed a some kind of metallic uh, round foreign object that was in my arm about the size of a BB. And which I couldn't explain it. If I've ever got shot with BB, I sure as heck would have known it, you
Yeah,
know.
just getting grazed with
And
one don't feel good.
and I think that, and this will another thing will come up later on when I continue the discussion. But I think that when I was a child at 5 years old, I think that these alien creatures, grays, whatever people want to call them, I think that I was marked or tagged, or they put some kind of device in me where they can keep tabs on me. And
That's the scariest part about any of that whole situation to me. I've talked to
and
people who've been tagged or marked before, and they always have reoccurring, just like you, reoccurring experiences.
and the and I got to thinking about it again a couple years ago, and I've got a great family physician, and I talked to her a little bit about it, and she agreed to do it. And I went down about 2 years ago and took another X-ray of my arm, and it is still in my arm today.
Now, you were telling me, tell the folks what happens when you try to mess with this thing or when you try to move it around in your arm.
When I try to put isolate it where it's at, uh, try to put my finger, move it, roll my skin, or try to feel it or anything like that, it starts to hurt. It's like it knows for some reason when I'm interested in it, or uh, uh, want to find out exactly right where it's at. It causes pain, and I have to leave it alone. It's a sharp. It's like somebody sticking, I don't know, needles in your arm. It's that kind of feeling when you mess with it. So I've just got to the point where I don't even mess with it or anything. And I've talked to my mother about it, and she's seen it and all. And I would like to get it out of my arm one day and get someone to examine it to see
No kidding.
exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean I'd be in Trip Out City daily if I had that thing in my arm, bro. Especially given the experiences you have and how
Yeah.
these things just seem to find you. And we got into blood types a little while ago. We've known each other for a little over a year. We talk almost daily, and we start talking about blood types, and people would be amazed at what blood type these beings seem to target, because there is, to me it seems like there's some sort of a targeting taking place of
Well,
certain
I
individuals with certain
I'm
attributes.
O negative.
Yeah, so am I. So are a lot of people that I've spoken to who not only have had encounters with these grays or other beings, but it, there always seems to be something left behind. Like they're tagging people.
And I don't know what it's from. I've got a feeling, that somehow, some way, it can cause things to change in your body. Uh, and I'll kind of give you an example of this. This is kind of sad, and I really hate to talk about it. And if I get a little upset about it, please forgive me. But my ex-wife and me, we had a beautiful little girl. Um, she was born, and everything was normal. And She was a normal child up till she was 2.5 years old, and uh, things changed with her. And come to find out, and a lot of people don't know about this disease. It's a chromosome disease. It's called Batten's disease, and I really truly believe, my wife and I met each other. She was 5,000 miles away. My wife was British. And, I'm just a simple country boy from North Carolina. And we met each other, by the fates to be. And we have a child, and this child ends up getting one of the rarest diseases on earth. And and I lost my little girl when she was 6 years old. I had to watch her slowly deteriorate. And I think whatever this thing is in me is the cause of it. I mean, I really, truly do believe that.
And we've spoken about that before, and that's very brave to share that, and we appreciate you sharing that part with us because who knows, maybe someone's gone through a similar event. On behalf of everyone, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, it's my little girl's in heaven now. It took me a lot
Amen.
of a lot of a lot of time to get over it. It's something that a parent shouldn't ever have to deal with, but with everything else that has gone on in my life, and for that to happen, it's just it's sometimes it's unbearable. But you know, it's funny how all this stuff seems like it's linked together for some reason.
I understand it's hard not to link it together. This very, very strange happenings. And like I said, I have a little girl, and when you told me that, I can't help it. I lost my mom at 15, but there's nothing I couldn't imagine, brother. But moving on a little bit further,
All right.
you were a young man, a little bit out of your teens, I believe, when you saw your first craft. Am I correct?
Yeah, this is going to blow everybody's mind here. I was in my early 20s. I was a field supervisor in my early 20s, which is very rare. So I decided, me and three other friends of mine, we're going to get together that night, and we were going to play, spades. And we were meeting up in a house that was in the country. Well, things progressed. It was time to go. Um, I said my goodbyes, and I remembered I had an old '88 Isuzu Trooper, and when I parked my vehicle, it was on an incline and it was pointing up in the sky. And when I was walking out to my vehicle, I just happened to look up in the northern sky, and about a half a mile away, there was an object in the sky. And I said, "That's not a helicopter." I said, "It can't be a jet." I said, "What in the world is that?" So I hopped in my trooper. I turned my lights on, and this, crazy as it seems, I started flashing my lights at it, back and forth, back and forth. And this craft did the most unthinkable thing. It blinked out and was a half a mile to the southwest blinked out or moving so fast that I, you blink your eyes and it's gone. And all of a sudden, it was over top of us. It went blink, blink, and it was over top of us in two moves. And this craft was right over top of me, and I've got three witnesses that were there with me. I yelled back at my friends in the house, and they came out. Well, the young girl that was with one of them, she didn't want to have nothing to do with it. She turned around and went back in the house. It scared her to death, Tracy. And Kevin and Chris, um, they were just in as about as in awe as I was. But this craft was probably no more than 100 feet above us. It was as big as a football field. It was a triangular shaped craft, no sound, no nothing. It had lights at every corner of the triangle, and it had a light in the middle of it. The lights on the corner were red, and the one in the middle was white. And it was so black that it was reflecting light back off of it. Say if you had enough light off the porch light that was on, you could see it reflecting off of the metal. It was so black. And like I say, there wasn't any sound, anything. And I was almost up under the craft, and the other two guys finally they said they had enough of this. And I don't know if the craft was possibly there for me or what, but it started moving to the east really slow. I mean, like maybe 5 miles an hour or something. I'm taking a guess, but it was really slow. And I hopped back in my old trooper, and I could see the craft as I was driving down the road. I was looking out my window. My head was sticking out the window, and and then all of a sudden, I felt a feeling that I haven't felt since I was a child. That same feeling I had when I was 5 years old. That turning feeling, and inside my chest and my stomach and all.
Yeah, that whirling, like water going down a
Yeah,
drain feeling.
right. And the next thing I remember, D, is I woke up the next morning in my bed with my clothes on, not knowing how in the world that I got home. And I was dumbstruck. I'm still dumbstruck about it today, because
Well, that's unfathomable. Like it's.
how in the world did I get home, man?
Oh,
I
I'm
mean, the
talking. No,
last
that's the
thing,
first of the questions. Yeah, how'd you get home? How did it make no noise yet move at 5 miles an hour, being that big? It's
I mean, it was an unbelievable event. And it's just one of the things you have to see it to believe it. But let me tell you, buddy, it was there. it was real. And but I didn't have any fear. I was more curious than anything else about it when it first come over top of us. And
So
and
there
like I
wasn't that
said,
apprehension or sort of, kind of even doubtful fear, like maybe I should leave this thing alone, like because you followed it, right?
well, I had to go the same way it was going to me to go home. And I at that time I had my own house that I was renting that was almost 2 counties away. And how the last thing I remember is my head out the window looking at this thing and waking up the next morning in my bed. And I got up and I looked outside and my trooper was there. It was parked the way I always park it and everything. And every once in a while I'll see at least Kevin, one of the guys that was there, and we'll talk about it a little bit. And he'll draw on a piece of paper exactly the ship that we seen, the lights, everything. And he's still amazed by it too. But I think that my gut feeling is that I was being tracked, and they were there to get me again. I really do.
So I mean, it's basically a missing time event, seeing as how you couldn't account for how you got home, how you got in bed. The
Yeah,
last thing you remember is actually being underneath this thing, looking out the window at it.
yeah. And this was probably at, I don't know, I left around probably 12 or was leaving around 12. And after looking at this thing in the sky and everybody coming out and everything that went on, it was probably about 12:10, 12:15. And next thing I remember, it's, 7:30 in the morning, popping up out of bed like, what in the world just happened?
Wow. And this wasn't one of these, what they call, what I call the living UFOs, right? That's morphing and changing, and it seems like there's a light emitting from it. Would you say
No,
that it was
no.
a metallic craft?
This was a craft. This was some kind of triangular craft that it didn't it wasn't doing none of this stuff that people say that was morphine and changing colors and things like that. It it was a triangle craft.
Like a
It's I
machine,
mean,
basically.
yeah. And when it I first spotted it and flashed my lights at it, and it flashed and went to the east southeast about a half a mile, stopped right there and flashed again and was right over top of us. That amazed me. That was speeds
Well, it
that is
defies the laws of physics, really.
you can you imagine the G's that would be pulling on somebody to do something
Exactly.
like that?
That's what I find so fascinating about the metallic crafts, not the ones that seem like there's some sort of a living being, but the ones that
Right.
seem like they're just flying machines. How they can go from point A to point B without any kind of you don't hear it, this metal machine drag in the air. Um, Nothing like that. It's strange.
Well, it's not any kind of combustible vehicle that we know of or we use. But then again, it could be some high technology that we engineered from crashed UFOs or and things, and
Now,
that's,
I've heard a lot of that. I do believe that there is a lot of the reverse engineering going on.
well, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but I'm in the belief if you can think it, it's been already done.
No doubt. And the a lot of people say the anti-gravity thing. I think it lends more credence to what we know of gravity being a little bit off. Playing those ice hockey games, with the kind of the magnetic thing where you push two magnets together and that's how it kind of slides across the table. That's what it
Yeah.
reminds me of how I could just go from barely moving to flying across the air at a tremendous rate of speed without any kind of drag or uh, creating that much noise. It's very, very
Well,
interesting to me.
and what's unbelievable to me is there was no sound emanating from this craft at all. Nothing. Like I said, I didn't see the very top of the craft. I was looking at the bottom of the craft. There was no windows, no nothing, just these lights, and it was just smooth black. Black as black can get. Is how black this thing was. But
Like almost void of color.
yeah, and I've told people, you know, a, a few people about what's happened about these things that I've seen and gone through, and and you get the typical ridicule, and they laugh at you and make jokes about you, and you get to the point in your life where I just don't say anything to anybody anymore because of the way I've been treated my whole life, and finally I met you and the BDRP family, and and you guys are great, and a lot of you guys are going through the same thing that I'm going through, and this stuff needs to be told. People need to know what's going on
Absolutely.
now
I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of
because
people out there that feel like they're alone.
absolutely, and a lot of people go crazy over this stuff, and you know they can't comprehend it or they can't wrap their mind around it. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, I've always had a great outlet with my mother. I could always come to my mother and talk to my mother, which I lost my father at the age of 53, but he was always someone that I could go to talk to, but he was like, well, if you say you see it, I believe you, son. But, I got the feeling that he didn't believe it. He was old school. And,
Right.
but my mom has always been there for me. And I thank God for her. But, it's crazy. I mean,
And it seems to be just completely ongoing. There only seems to be little intervals and breaks, you know.
well, it seems like all this activity, not just my activity, but worldwide, it seems like this thing is ramping up. It's happening more and more. You hear about
Absolutely.
more sightings of ghosts, more UFO sightings, and more cryptic sightings. It just keeps on and on. And, you know, this stuff needs to be taken seriously. And the people, and I'm hoping the people that are like me that have kept it bottled up for so long are brave enough and have an outlet like the BDRP and you, and to talk about this stuff, and it really does help to it's helped me to talk to you about these things because you know it's one thing talking to your mom, but talking to somebody else that can relate, that has kind of been through the same things that you have,
Absolutely.
it really means a lot, D.
Well, it means a lot to me that you would put that trust in me, and it's a two-way road. We've become very good friends, and we've talked about things that uh, this anomalous, strange activity, and things that normal people get to deal with. So I appreciate the trust and the friendship. I truly do.
Well, you are a good man, and this is a great site. You build a great site, and there's a lot of people on the site that I highly respect and uh, and
I
love to
appreciate
hear
that.
from. Yep,
Yeah, and like you just said, folks, if anybody, it doesn't have to be Bigfoot or Dogman related. If you have anything that you would like to share, or you're going through anything, it doesn't even have to be put on this channel or on that Facebook page. Just know that there's people out there that'll give you a non-biased or non-prejudiced ear, rather. Does anyone have any questions for my guests before we wrap it up? And would you come back for a part two? Because I know that's just a portion of everything that you've
yeah. I
dealt with.
mean, I have a sighting of a Bigfoot. Where I live here in North Carolina, I have a river that runs right behind my house, and I've had a sighting of a Bigfoot here or Sasquatch, and I would be glad to talk about that and all some of the other strange things that are continuing today that's ongoing. But I would be honored to, D.
It'd be an honor to have you, brother. And again, the email is bigfootdogmanresearch@gmail.com or DDoS, DEEDOSS 13 @gmail.com. Bigfoot Forest Vancouver Island says, did he ever seek medical attention for the implant? Yes, ma'am, he did. You want to address that again, Mike?
Yeah, I when I was about 2 years ago, uh, when I first discovered it when I was about 12 or 13 when I broke my wrist, which it showed up on the x-ray. Well, I kind of put it in my back of my mind, but about 2 years ago, I asked my physician uh, if I could get another x-ray of my arm, and the foreign body, whatever it is that's in my arm, was still there and showed up on the x-ray. And I haven't determined yet if I want to get to the point where I want to get it taken out and examined, because you know who does that, who can you trust to do things like that,
Right.
and but
That's a good question. I'd be, as much as I wouldn't want that thing in with me, I'd be kind of leery about what physician I'd actually go to. You're good to
yep.
have like a lifelong, family physician that you can trust. Uh, our boy Tater Plays has a few questions. Number one was there water or a substance like water? I don't know what that means. You got to come on. You're one of the smartest people on this channel. You got to be more specific than that. Was there water or a substance like water? I'm guessing he means near your encounter
uh
with the UFO, or I'll jump to the second question. Let
well,
him flesh
yeah,
that
yeah,
first.
yes, it was. uh
Ah,
where it was at was right over, when I first seen it, it was right over a swamp.
you hear that a lot, don't you? Over swamps and lakes.
Yep.
Now I think I know
I,
why he asked that question.
well, I think a lot of these craft, and don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of these crafts hide. These are great places for these crafts to hide and
Absolutely.
go to.
You
And I
hear a
don't
lot of
know,
stories of them coming out of the ocean.
if they need hydrogen for these vehicles or not. But that's another theory that I got too, because I think some people have seen these things sucking up water and releasing things and stuff like that.
Draining whole lakes.
I mean,
That and water plays a big part in the spiritual portion of it too. Dating back
Absolutely.
to the Fae and all that kind of stuff. So I understand what you're saying. That was a good question. He had another one, was the implant embedded in scar tissue.
Um, the implant where it's at now is right below my elbow on the top side of your forearm. It's about 2 inches below where your elbow is. The cracking, you know how your arm bends. It's about 2 inches down, and I don't think it's in scar tissue. I
So
mean, because I've never, you know, I hadn't had any other kind of, you know,
problems or
injuries there or anything like that. I mean,
that's a good question though.
yeah, yeah.
Let's see, we'll take one or two more. Um, some of these questions make no sense whatsoever. Like I don't think they're really fleshed out all that great. Like Browndorf asks, is that gravitics? Gravitics. I don't know. Moving on. Yes, it is. That's what that means. Uh, are cell phones contributing to recent sightings? D. Stewart asked. What do you think about that one? That was a fairly decent question. I don't believe so.
I don't think either, but I mean, with all these disappearances and things that are going on in national parks and everything nowadays, maybe if someone's got that kind of technology, they sure can track your cell phone where you're at, and they can tell if, and scan and see if you're by yourself or anybody's around you, and you know, I guess abduct you that way. I mean,
Yeah, and I think he's like another portion of it is it an elevation because more people are filming this stuff because more people have cell phones? I don't believe so. You'd be surprised, but look at the hieroglyphs over in Egypt. There's some that look like UFOs as we know them today, the flying saucers and gray aliens in South America as well. I believe
oh,
this stuff has been going on for forever.
well, you know that me and you discuss this a lot, and I would love to have a sit down conversation with some of the guys that and me and you, and discuss some of this stuff, because
Absolutely.
there's plenty of hieroglyphs that absolutely they show helicopters, airplanes, and they have took these things to scale and created them, and they fly perfectly.
All right, and yeah, absolutely, and that's the strangest part about it. Is it ancient technology? The Bible says what was before shall be again. Who knows? But that would, make a fantastic roundtable, and we will actually maybe we'll do that on the next one. Um, I'll let Bigfoot Forest Vancouver Island have the last word, and she says, "Do you find that you can quote unquote conjure or quote unquote call up these UFOs just by thinking about them?"
Uh, I've never really gave it a thought. Um, Me personally, I don't want to see the things. But I don't think so. You know, I guess because I don't think much about it, but maybe I have to try that one day and see if it actually happens.
Be careful with that though.
Be
But there's a
careful for what you wish for, huh?
yeah, no kidding. There are a lot of people that believe that they can call these things up, and I've seen video that was actually put on news outlets, news junkets, where people have done that. So it's very, very strange.
Yes,
That other
sir.
aspect of it.
I've seen it too. They got I think Dr. Greer does it, and then there's another doctor that does it, and it's truly amazing.
Yeah, they're playing with fire, though, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, how else are we going to understand it if we don't make contact?
Yeah, that's true. All you have is speculation until then. But
Yep.
folks, thank you very, very much for your attentiveness and all of you who came to watch this live interview on the Late Show. It means a lot to the both of us, and we hope you join us for a part two. Mike, do you have any last words for the folks?
Again, I want to say thank you, Dee, for giving me a platform to finally talk about these things. And I want to thank the BDRP family for making me part of your family over the last couple of years. It's been a great experience, and I'm honored. And again, thank you, Dee,
Absolutely.
for everything.
It's an honor and a blessing to not only have you, but everybody who's listening now and everybody who's pushed me forward so far. Folks, I might come back on here because at midnight, it will mark the 2nd-year anniversary of this YouTube channel, the 3rd year of my project. So I'm very, very excited about that. Happy birthday to the Bigfoot Dogman Research Project through its Facebook page and the BDRP Variety TV, the YouTube channel that I've built. It's been fantastic. Y'all have been very, very good to me. And I've had a blast on this show. You put out a lot of good information, and thank you again for. I know a lot of it was hard to talk about, and shows a lot of bravery on your part. And honored to call you a friend,
Yes, sir, buddy.
folks. This is the BDRP Late Show for Mr. Mike. I'm D Doss. You folks have a pleasant night. God bless.